Today we're going to talk about something called fractional equations. This is a combination of what we've been doing combined with what we did way back at the beginning of the year, which is solving equations, also combined with what we did in our chapter of rational expressions and quadratic functions, where we would solve by factoring. If you remember, we would factor, get one side to be 0, and then we would be able to find our roots or our solution. So it's kind of a combination of a bunch of things. But at the heart of the matter, what it is, there are equations that we need to solve that have fractions in them. Now, because they're equations that we have to solve, our answers will be numbers, okay? So x equals 4, or -3, or 1/2. They will be actual numbers. We're solving equations. That's the purpose of this lesson. We're trying to find what number or numbers can I plug in to make it true. So make sure all of your answers are actual numbers or fractions. They're not polynomials, they're not binomials, they're not x minus 2. They're an answer, they're an actual number. Before we do that, let's remind ourselves and review ourselves of some quadratic functions that we did in the last chapter. So in the last chapter, you had a problem like this. 3x squared minus 8x plus 4 equals 0. And what we need to do is solve this. And in order to solve it, we need to get one side to be 0, and then we're going to factor it. Now, we actually did many methods. We did the quadratic formula, we solved by square roots, we solved by graphing, but the main one that we did, and the easiest one that most people found easy, was by factoring. So get one side to be 0, then we factor, and then we're going to find our roots. So let's factor this trinomial. There is an a, so we have to do the trick. X squared minus 8x plus 12. Remember, 3 times 4 to do the trick. Why are we doing the trick? Because there's an a, there's a number in front of the x squared. So now we need to factor it. Find two numbers that multiply for 12, but also add for -8. That would be -6 and -2. Now what we cannot forget to do because of the trick is take the a that we used to multiply to 4 to get 12 and divide. So now we're going to divide both these by 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 2 divided by 3 does not come out evenly, so we're going to bring the 3 out in front of the x. It's going to say 3x minus 2 equals 0. So now that I've factored it, we're going to find our roots. Remember, our roots are just our solutions. This times this equals 0, so either this must be 0 or this must be 0. Well, what number can I plug in here to make this 0? It's 2. That's one of our answers. 2 minus 2 is 0. If I plugged in 2 for that x, it would make this 0. 2 minus 2 is 0. What number can I plug in here to make it 0? If you remember, it's 2/3. If there's a number in front of the x, remember it's going to be a fraction. This number will be your numerator. The number with the variable is on the denominator, and the sign is different. So instead of it being subtraction, it's going to be a positive. This is just a review. We did this last chapter in quadratic functions. So if you forgot how to do this, go back and look at the quadratic functions notes, go back and look at your stuff, and hopefully that will remind yourself. So we're going to take this and combine it with fractions. So we're going to take this problem, and we're going to put fractions in it from the beginning. In order to do this, what we're going to do is something called clearing the fraction. We've done this before. We want to clear the fractions out. We want to get rid of the fractions, and thus it will be much easier to work out a problem like this if we clear the fractions. Because once we clear the fractions out of there, then we do it just like this. We've done this many times before, and hopefully it's not too bad. So let's look at a couple examples. X squared over 9 minus x over 6 minus 1/2 equals 0. So the first thing we're going to do is clear out the fractions. To do that, we need to find the least common denominator. So the smallest number that all of our denominators go into evenly. The least common multiple of the denominator. So what's the smallest number? 9, 6, and 2 all go into evenly. That number would be 18. So our LCD is 18. So what you're going to do, you need to multiply everything in the equation, every part of the equation, every term, by the number 18. So we're going to multiply this fraction by 18, this fraction by 18, this fraction by 18, and the 0 by 18. You need to multiply every term, every part of the equation by the LCD. Multiply it all by 18. because what this is going to do, it's going to clear the fractions out of there, which means there will be no more fractions, and it will be much easier for us to solve. So let's see how to do that. Now, here's the easiest way to do this. You're going to take the number, the LCD, divided by the bottom, take that answer times the top. So take the LCD divided by the bottom, that answer times the top. The LCD divided by the bottom, multiply that by the top. So for example, 18 divided by 9 is 2. 2 times x is 2x squared. So this whole thing becomes 2x squared. The fraction is now gone. 18 divided by 9 is 2. 2 times x squared is 2x squared. 18 divided by 6 is 3. 3 times x is 3x. Why is it negative? Because there's a subtraction sign there. 18 divided by 6 is 3. 3 times x is 3x. 18 divided by 2 is 9. 9 times 1 is 9. 18 times 0 is just 0. I have now cleared the fraction because I've multiplied every part of my equation by the least common denominator, which in this case is 18. So now it's just like the last example. Now I just solve it. I'm going to factor it. I have an a. I have to do the trick. X squared minus 3x minus 18. We're looking for two numbers that multiply for negative 18 but also add for negative 3. That's negative 6, positive 3. Divide by the a. So I get x minus 3. This has to be brought back. 2x plus 3 equals 0. So now it becomes just like the last example. I factor it. I did the trick. I work it down. I find my two roots. One root is 3. What number can I plug in to make it 0? The other one is negative 3 over 2. So find the LCD, multiply everything by the LCD. That will clear out the fractions, and then you solve it just like normal, just like we did in the last chapter. Let's look at another example. 2x plus 3 over 4 minus x over 6 is less than x plus 1. So this is not an equation. It's an inequality. It's got our alligator. That will change absolutely nothing of the problem. Nothing will change from the problem. We're still going to do it the same way we did last one. So look at your denominators and find the least common denominator. In this case, I only have two denominators, 4 and 6. These aren't fractions. They're not denominators. So 4 and 6. So what I'm going to do is I need to find the LCD. Well, what's the least common denominator of 4 and 6? Well, that would be 12. So we're going to multiply everything by 12. This times 12. This times 12. Now here's where most people forget. This term by 12 and this term by 12. You need to multiply every part of the equation by the LCD. All right. Now just like last time, 12 divided by 4 is 3. 3 times the numerator. Now my numerator is a binomial, so I'm just going to leave it like this for now. So once again, 12 divided by 4 is 3. 3 times the top, I get that. 12 divided by 6 is 2. 2 times x is negative 2x. 12 times x and 12 times 1. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 3 times the top. Now I'm going to distribute. 6x plus 9 minus 2x is less than 12x plus 2. So now we're just going to solve this like a regular equation. I don't need to get one side to be 0. I don't need to factor anything because it's not a quadratic function. The reason I know that is because I don't see an x to the second. When you see an x to the second somewhere, you need to try to get one side to be 0 and factor it like we did before. But because of that, there is no x to the second. We're just going to solve it. Combine our like terms. 4x plus 9 less than 12x plus 12. We're going to combine our like terms. Subtract 12x from both sides. I'm also going to subtract 9. So I get negative 8x is less than 3. Now I'm trying to get x by itself, so divide by negative 8, divide by negative 8. So my answer is x. Now remember from way back in the beginning of the year, when you divide both sides by a negative and you're dealing with an inequality, we cannot forget to flip the sign. So the alligator or inequality needs to be flipped. 3 divided by 8 does not come out evenly. That's okay. We're going to leave it as a fraction. Negative 3/8. So multiply everything by the LCD. That gets rid of all of our fractions. And then we solve it like normal. In this case, I did not have an x to the second. It was not a quadratic function. So I just solved it like a traditional problem. Last one. Okay? I have 3 fractions in this problem, so I need to clear them out of there. We're going to get rid of all of our fractions. 5, 6, and 3. What is the least common denominator of 5, 6, and 3? The smallest number those 3 all go into, that would be 30. So the LCD is 30. So I'm going to multiply by 30, multiply by 30, multiply by 30. So once again, 30 divided by 5 is 6. 6 times the top. We're going to leave it as 6x, x plus 1. 30 divided by 5 is 6. 6 times x is 6x. 30 divided by 6 is 5. Now here's the important part. This is a negative 5. There's lots of students, maybe some of you, who will want to bypass the distributing part and want to do it all in one step. What I found is people who do that tend to make this mistake here, and you'll see why in a second. If you just do 30 divided by 6 and make it 5, and then multiply the top by 5, it's going to be wrong. It's going to be negative 5, and that's very, very important. Over here, 30 divided by 3 is 10. 10 times the numerator is just 10. Now I need to solve it. So I'm going to distribute 6x to the second plus 6x minus 5x minus 5. Make sure you distribute a negative 5. That's why that's very important. So now I have an x to the second, so I know it's a quadratic function. So I need to get one side to be 0, and I'm going to factor it and try to find my roots. So I'm going to combine my like terms. So 6x to the second plus 1x. I'm also going to get one side to be 0, so I'm going to subtract 10. So negative 15 equals 0. Now I need to try to do the trick because I'm going to factor this. So I'm going to take x to the second plus 1x minus 90. Find two numbers, x plus 10, x minus 9. Divide by my a, which is 6. Okay, I'm going to run out of room, so I'm going to continue over here. 10 divided by 6 does not come out evenly, but I do want to reduce it. 2 goes into both that, so it's going to be x plus 5/3. Same thing here. I can reduce that to 3/2. Now I'm going to bring the denominators over. So 3x plus 5, 2x minus 3. Now that equals 0. Okay, once again, I did the trick. 6 times 15 is 90. Found two numbers, divide by my a, reduce it down. So my two roots are negative 5/3 and positive 3/2. Those are my two answers. So once again, to solve fractional equations, we find the least common denominator, multiply everything by it. Make sure you multiply everything, especially in a problem like this. People will forget to multiply those by 12. Typically, when I ask them why, they say because it's not a fraction. It doesn't matter if it's a fraction. Every part of the equation must be multiplied by the LCD. Then you just solve it like normal. If there is no x squared, you just solve it like a traditional equation. If there is an x squared, you need to get one side to be 0, factor it, and find your two roots. That is fractional equations.